Hello, my Bell 5000 Nation. How's everyone doing today? Hopefully, everyone's having a great day. If not, I hope it gets better from here. We are back with another Coffeehouse Crime. This one is titled The Incel Virgin Who Became a Murderer, the case of Jake Davison. Damn. Let's get into some shit. Go ahead, turn them lights down low, put on something comfy, cup or something special. Like I said, let's get into some shit. Like, I'm ready. Let's do this.
I know it's a movie, but I like to think sometimes, I'm a Terminator or something, and despite reaching almost total system failure, he keeps trying to accomplish his mission. When you get beaten down by life,
He's the Terminator. I'll be back.
This is the case of Jake Davison. Jake was a hate-filled misogynist and incel who thought he was against the world. All the same, he believed he was entitled to women. With negligence towards his mental health and negligence over the many warning signs this man had presented, Jake's beliefs would lead to one of the worst attacks in England in the recent decade.
Damn.
But how did it come to this? Who was Jake? And what were the missed opportunities? Welcome back to Coffeehouse Crime. My name is Adrian, and today we're talking about the delusional case of Jake Davison.
How are you doing today, evening, tonight, Adrian? Are you doing good, bud? You look like you're doing good, bud.
With negligence towards mental health, social media, and firearms licenses, I feel there are many mistakes we can learn from in today's story. By the way, I post solved, unsolved, and strange cases here on a weekly basis, so if that sounds like your kind of thing, please consider subscribing to Coffeehouse Crime. So with that said, let's get into it. Pull up a seat, grab a coffee, and sit back. This is the case of Jake Davison.
Jakey boy.
I know I said I'd be taking a break from my own country, but this was a real strange case. Today we're bringing things slightly closer to home and travelling down to the southwestern tip of England, landing in the picturesque county of Devon. Welcome to West Country. Devon, along with its neighbouring counties of Somerset and Cornwall.
What the fuck? That is beautiful. Oh my god. Like, I just want to just go there and get naked and just run ever so gracefully through the woods. Like a wild gazelle, bro. You don't even know.
Are known to be amongst the most beautiful areas in the UK. It's rugged and
so fucking beautiful. It's thick with beauty.
And windswept moors sweeping out over the horizon are home to many myths and legends, and supposedly fairies too. The coastlines boast some of the clearest and bluest oceans.
Like motherfucking Tinkerbell? I want a motherfucking Tinkerbell. I can become Peter Pan!
In the country, which crash against gorgeous cliffs and multiple registered areas of outstanding natural beauty. And this is just
Bet there's some pirate treasure there somewhere. It looks piratey.
one of the many reasons that holidaymakers looking to get away within the UK choose this area for their time off. And it's here in the port city of Plymouth that we find the household of 22-year-old Jake Davison, who lived on Biddick Drive with his mother Maxine. Maxine was a single mother, and with the
At least it was with his mommy, not his grandmother. That is a step in a diagonal parallels. It's still pretty shitty. He was probably living in the basement.
Financial troubles of raising a child on your own, the pair lived in government-assisted housing, also known as council housing in the UK. Both Jake and his mother had always lived in the Keam area of Plymouth, though prior to Jake's birth, Maxine had actually lived in the remote location of the Shetland Islands. And while living on the islands, she eventually became friends with a man named Mark Davison, a local fisherman. Which wasn't necessarily good news, as Mark was a well-known thug on the islands, often getting into fights and struggling with
life as a spinster, get with, a thuggish type character. It's like tomatoes and potatoes.
There's alcohol problems. Well, conversations led to feelings, and before they knew it, the two of them welcomed two new babies into the world, Jake's older siblings Zoe and Josh. However,
That
due
was
to Mark's
fast.
antisocial behavior and
That was fucking fast. Was there no 5-date rule back in the day? Just a 4-date, 3-date rule would have been amazing.
tendency to drink, tensions between the couple grew over time.
Because back in the day, they didn't have time to wait for all that shit. Well, what the fuck was I thinking?
And shortly after falling pregnant with their third child Jake, the two separated. Maxine moving down to Keyham, a small suburb found northwest of Plymouth. Unfortunately, this move would split Maxine and a newborn baby Jake from his brother and sister Zoe and Josh, who remained on the island. Although Maxine had now moved far away from her family, she wasn't entirely isolated from them. Both she and Jake would often visit for long periods of time. However, while visiting, Jake's mother and grandparents grew increasingly worried about his behaviour. He was an extremely quiet individual, but also very quick to become irritable, and as a young child, he seemed to be developing anger issues. This concern led Maxine to get Jake assessed for learning difficulties.
Was he starting to get that protruding forehead that we see in cartoons?
And after a long assessment period, he was eventually diagnosed with autism.
Oh,
Raising a child with autism can be a gift, but also a challenge.
it can be very, but honestly, it's all stressful. Anytime you're having to go out of your way in your life to help better take care of another life, another person, it's stressful, no matter what it is. Props to anyone out there in any of those situations taking care of someone. You do not have enough help, I guarantee it. Mad respect.
Especially as a single mother. And as Jake turned 6 years old, she wasn't sure whether to send him to a public school or a specialised school for children with special needs. In the end, Maxim settled for Mount Tamar, a public-funded school for children with special needs and learning difficulties.
Hey!
The school was relatively small, with a maximum number of students at 100.
You don't need a lot. You don't need a lot. You got some gifted kids going there. You need those classrooms small. They need that one-on-one attention.
110. However, it was critically underfunded by the government, and for this reason, didn't have the best reputation around.
That's pitiful.
At school, Jake was known to be a quiet child that didn't get along with many. His autism meant that he found it difficult to socialise and relate with other children. And so, this is how Jake spent his childhood. Lonely. He would spend most of his free time with his mother and seeing family in the Shetland Islands, and in his teens, Jake would turn to the internet for friendship. Although he found it difficult to socialise in real life, Jake would find it easy online, playing video games and frequenting online forums. And although he was a quiet kid, he wasn't necessarily a bad kid. Instead, neighbours described him as a pleasant boy, and every week he would go down to the supermarkets to help his mother with the shopping. It wasn't until Jake's late teens that he began to hold a very negative outlook on his life, and one of these main frustrations in his life was his inability to find a girlfriend. You see, Jake wanted nothing more than to lose his virginity, and this was apparent from his late teens all the way through to his adulthood. In fact, at the age of 22, Jake would frequently talk about this on his
I mean, he I don't know what it's like where he lives, but where I live, man, if you are that hard up for something to stick anything in, money will buy a lot. I don't think you're gonna have to do whatever the hell he did, because I imagine it's fucking awful. Just, a nice crisp $20 bill. You'd be surprised how much love that can get you. Don't murder. Don't murder.
his YouTube channel named Professor Waffle, often blaming his own mental barriers and his appearance.
Just looking at a girl, I can feel it, Just and I did have girls into me. I had girls into me. I had them into me. Fucking stupid, ridiculous mental barriers, like for me a lot of the reason I didn't was because I was fat as I sat there and think, how can I be on top of this girl with my fat thighs, my fat stomach, and
It was during his teenage years, at the age of 17,
I'm gonna laugh. Hold on 1 second. Oh god. Oh fuck. That's a lot to take in, but I feel bad for him though. That something that was fucking with him. Oh, I hate that's. Damn it, Adrian. I hate feeling bad for the person I'm not supposed to feel bad for. It makes me feel bad.
that cracks in Jake's personality began to form, and his actions, views, and personal philosophies began to warp. One notable instance was in 2016, when he received a warning from police for attacking a 25-year-old man and his pregnant girlfriend, while they were walking around his local neighbourhood. The attack was completely unprovoked, and Jake allegedly punched this man almost 20 times. He was reported to the police. However, due to lack of evidence, they couldn't arrest Jake, and the incident was ultimately dropped.
What? Like 20 times? Motherfucker should be a boxer.
Throughout this entire incident, police didn't seem to take the victim's case seriously, and unfortunately, these details were never put on Jake's record. 1 year later, in June of 2017, Jake applied for a firearms license to own a shotgun. He'd been frequenting online gun forums via Reddit.
That's shitty. And it was probably because he had a mental disability. Which I'm not besmirching by any means. I'm just saying that is shitty. Like, he deserves something on his record for that. Period. He did.
For quite some time, and now he wanted one himself. The UK holds relatively strict rules when it comes to firearm licenses. The long story short is you must be judged not to pose a threat to public safety, and you must have a very good reason why you want to own one. There was no substantial reason for Jake's application. He lived in a city, didn't live or work on a farm, and he certainly had no desire to shoot clay pigeons. Despite this, his application was strangely approved in 2018, and now Jake was legally allowed to own a firearm, and owned a pump-action shotgun. Which, to be honest, as a fellow English dude, doesn't sound normal at all here in the UK. Throughout his late teens, and into his early adulthood, Jake fostered his own kind of ideologies in life, and he became more and more loathing of his own mother as she began to disagree with him, the two often fighting and getting into rather heated arguments. While Jake was a young boy, his mother received financial support from the government to keep them housed. But now he was over 18 years old, she was no longer eligible to receive that income. Jake didn't seem to realise how much this financially supported them. And now, without that benefit, he was forced to get a job, finding work as a scaffolder to help keep the house together. From here on out, Jake would often go online to post about how much he hated his mother, although nobody would really listen to him. And here, Jake would also complain about his encounters with women, how he felt they were all simple-minded, and how they only cared about money. Maxine didn't agree with many of her son's beliefs, from his nihilistic tendencies, all the way through to his thoughts about women.
A lot of women are very simple-minded and they ain't all that bright. You know, social media and thinking they're princesses and all this, they grow up. A lot of women are quite simple-minded. The only thing they understand is that. You know, you talk about intelligence, smartness, you know, women don't give a f*** about none of that. Unless you got that. You know, do you think they care about the little f***ing autistic kid in the corner who's won the mathematical international Olympiad or whatever the hell? They don't give a f***. If they said, oh yeah, the winning prize is $1.5 million, they'll care then. But money and status only makes it so far.
What the fuck kind of shit is that? Bro, yeah. Ladies are princesses. And when they grow up into queens. Like, treat them as such. You dumb fuck. Oh my god. Your mental disability isn't why you haven't found you a lady. Your thought process on what a lady is why you don't have one. Just saying, like, that's fucked.
He had grown to have a very misogynistic view on women. seeing them as something he deserved but could never have. And he began to feel like he had suffered enough and was now entitled to his very own woman.
I gotta read this. J3572 2:57 p.m. I am just like you. Aren't entitled to water, food, and to survive. You got to fight for it in life, back in caveman days. So yes, I feel entitled to my big titty girlfriend. I honestly don't see anything wrong with it. I understand if you're over 30, then it's a bit weird, but if you're early mid 20s, I don't see it as a problem. I really don't. But I don't pursue girls that age. More 18 to 35, and women are entitled beyond belief. Entitled.
He also believed that he was doomed to be forever alone, and therefore he had no passion or drive.
With a mindset like that, yes, you are doomed to be alone forever. I'm going to go ahead and read this just in case you don't. It's not just that, but what's the point of working hard if I just get nothing in life? Period. But yeah, lack of girls is def a big demotivator. I probably would be a lot more motivated and work harder right now if I had a pretty girl to spend my time with. But nonetheless, I'm trying regardless. Regardless.
In life. One of the main reasons that Jake developed and settled on this ideology was likely due to his long-term commitment to a specific set of online forums on the internet, where he could find and talk to people who thought similarly to himself. Most of his social interaction was nurtured from sites such as Reddit, one of the world's most popular public forums. And while here, he frequently viewed and commented on threads for gun enthusiasts and
I think he confused what a Chad is. A Chad can be a super masculine, rough looking, scar ridden MMA fighter with leathery skin, and a Chad can also mean a pretty TikTok e-boy. I think he means this. Both are Chad, however, but different kinds of Chad. Fucking no.
the Incel movement. We've touched upon the Incel world on this channel before, with the likes of Elliot Rodger and Alec Manassian. But for those unaware, Incel stands for involuntary celibate, and represents those who find they can't achieve any romantic or sexual success. Jake believed in the black pill ideology, a term used by incels to represent the view that unless they were physically attractive, women wouldn't want to be with them. This view is generally coupled with two solutions: either succumb to being forever alone, or find solace or solution in acts of violence.
The reality is, and this is my view, I think a big portion of people don't realise the black pill doesn't just apply to incels, guys. It applies to a lot of guys. These days, not having sex for 6 months, for a year, for a lot of guys is very, very common. Not getting one compliment from a person, extremely common. You know? Why do you think sexual assaults and all these things keep rising and women talk about it? Because the reality is that women don't need men no more. And they certainly don't want and don't need average men. And below average.
Another forum that
Man, have more self-esteem, blood. Bro. That was the problem. He needed to be the cock of the walk. It is what it is. You gotta have that confidence, bud. Can't walk around with the tail between your legs your whole life. Damn, man. Someone should have taught that boy better.
Jake would frequently visit is r/Doomer, a forum dedicated to those that believe there is no point in trying in life, and that they have already failed. Basically, it's a community for nihilists. As you can tell, Jake's online habits were not the healthiest, and he surrounded himself in an echo chamber full of negativity, all of which were angry at the world.
Not the healthiest. That is putting it ever so tenderly, Mr. Dude.
world and those within it. All of this negativity and nihilism had made Jake a very unlikable and turbulent person. He'd become unpredictable, erratic, and just generally frustrating to be around. This behaviour concerned many members of Jake's family. They had long been trying to get him mental health support through the public health service, the NHS. But despite this, and much like our previous case, supply was overshadowed by demand. The queues to see a psychologist or even counsellor was months. They felt hopeless. To add perspective to this, Jake's father, who had turned his life around since spending time in prison, had been seeking mental health support for a son since 2017.
That's
But
awful.
too much time had passed, and now it was
And I'm not saying the fact that they was trying to help him or anything. The fact that it was so hard for him to get help is awful. Mental health is beyond serious. If you need help, you get help. Help for that should be free for everyone. Mental anything is horrible. Your brain could make you a prisoner inside your own body. It's awful. That deserves help.
2020. The COVID pandemic was now ripping through the nation. The public health sector was overrun, understaffed, and underfunded. At this time, the wait for mental health assistance could be years, and Jake's mother Maxine knew this. But she was worried for her son so much that she went as far to notify the police about his behaviour, insisting upon a welfare check on her own son. However, despite this,
Gotcha.
her concerns would never be chased up by authorities. Which would be unfortunate, as in 2020, Jake would have a public fight with two teenagers in his area, which turned so volatile that police eventually revoked his gun license and his pump-action shotgun. And although this seems well and good, police noticed there were no previous
That was a smart move. It would have been smarter. Not let him have the motherfucker to begin with at all.
offences on Jake's record, so they agreed he could have his license and gun back if he attended an anger management course. Naturally, Jake agreed, and after taking this course in spring of 2021, he
They're all fucking stupid. I don't care. That's
would
dumb.
receive his firearm back in July of that same year. However, this was a dangerously naive decision, and police had no idea that handing this gun back to this unpredictable man was the key to a tragic event that would occur only 1 month later.
It's like in the Terminator, right?
And police had no idea that handing this gun back to this unpredictable man was the key to a tragic event that would occur only 1 month later.
You took it away from the son of a bitch for a reason. What the fuck? How did you not know? You're a fucking idiot. You're dumb. You're stupid. You fucking knew. Don't give me that bullshit.
It's like in the Terminator, right? You know, fate is nothing. You know, the whole premise of the Terminator movies is that everything's rigged against you. There's no hope for humanity. You know, we're on the brink of extinction. You know, these machines are unstoppable, killing machines that can't be beaten, can't be outsmarted. But yet, humanity still tries to fight to the end. And I know it's a movie, but you know, I like to think sometimes, you know, I'm a Terminator or something. And despite you know, reaching almost total system failure, he keeps trying to accomplish his mission.
August the 12th, 2021. The day began like any other summer's day in England, and the quiet suburb of Keyham was enjoying
Fuck.
a pleasant temperature of
Some bitch thinks he's Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's awful.
20 Celsius, 68 Fahrenheit. Residents were busy in the local parks walking their dogs, spending time with their families, and otherwise enjoying the summer evening. But very little did they know that the rage and frustration of one local man was finally at breaking point. Jake
Oh.
Davison, who had finally had his gun returned to him, was festering in his own storm. He had long felt that his life had no meaning, and his hatred for the general population was now reaching its peak. There was one person in his life that he felt he could blame for all the years and future years of his misfortune and misery. A person
His mother. Yep, there's a picture of her. I'm psychic.
that loved him dearly. However, he couldn't see it. He had grown to loathe her in the later years of his life. Jake was already in a bad mood. He had just had his Reddit account suspended the night prior for for making highly inappropriate comments towards a 16-year-old girl. And with his account now offline, he was mad. In this volatile
They took away the man's gun, took away his reason to live. They took away this paper saying he could have the gun. He took his way to harass a 16-year-old girl and he just snapped. Oh, God. Oh, fuck.
mental state, Jake picked another fresh argument with his mother, which wasn't uncommon in the household. As said before, they often disagreed with his views on women and life. But tragically, today's argument would end very differently. In a state of rage-filled anger, Jake stormed into his room before picking up his shotgun and U-turning before walking back down the hallway. And next, he burst into his mother's bedroom and shot her at point-blank range, striking her in the chest and head. She fell to the floor and was killed instantly. This wasn't enough for Jake. He knew the consequences of what he'd just done, and life wasn't worth living if he would meet them. So Jake didn't pause, he didn't falter. Instead, he reloaded his shotgun before opening the front door, taking to the quiet cul-de-sac of Biddick Drive. Upon exiting from the house, he set his eyes on a man across the road. This man's name was Lee Martin, and he was walking his 3-year-old adopted daughter, Sophie. Aggressively striding towards the two, Jake raised the shotgun, and upon noticing Jake, Lee tried to shield his daughter who was happily pushing a toy pram. Jake pulled the trigger, hitting both Lee and Sophie, and sadly, dealing fatal blows to them both. Shots rang throughout the neighbourhood, most of its residents suddenly becoming aware of a deranged man prowling their street, with multiple phone calls made to the police to report the sound of gunshots. Jake continued down the cul-de-sac, locking eyes with Ben Parsonage and his mother Michelle. Taking aim, he fired another round. Both were hit by the spread of bullets, but they managed to retreat into safety, wounded, the mother and son narrowly missing their untimely end. Jake took to an alleyway before running through a small local park, where Stephen Washington was busy taking a walk with his 2 husky dogs. Jake shot him, Stephen falling to the ground before passing away. Emerging onto Royal Navy Avenue, Jake ran past a bus stop before he began to shoot at random, not caring whether or not people were in the way. At this point, he was uncontrollably expressing his rage and frustration. Standing in the doorway of Blush Hairdressing Salon was 66-year-old Kate Shepherd. She was having a cigarette, unaware of the armed gunman heading her way. And tragically, Jake aimed and shot her on sight. She too was fatally wounded. With Jake's actions spanning several minutes across multiple streets, it was more than certain that police were already aware and on their way. It's at this
That's awful. It's awful that it got to that point. For one, the parents, they was trying. They was trying to get him into someplace. They informed the police. The police just kind of went stupid. Really dropped the ball on that. Not even gonna lie. Didn't let those poor guy have his damn gun back and shit. Wouldn't have done that in the first place. Everything just came to, and so many innocent people got killed by this fucker and his shitty little gun they shouldn't even fucking had in the fucking first place.
point that Jake knew his path of destruction was coming to an end, and there was no way that he'd be able to live as a free man. He carried on walking down the road, passing a shocked bystander before saying to him, "There's nothing to worry about, mate." Jake realised this was it. He turned the shotgun around, aimed it at his head, and took his own life. Police and paramedics arrived at the scene just several minutes later. Armed with tactical response teams, ambulances, specialist paramedics, and air ambulances. Jake was pronounced dead at the scene. The attack, lasting only 6 minutes, had claimed the lives of 5 innocent people, and would now bring devastation to the city of Plymouth. As this awful news spread throughout the country, we gradually learned the names of Jake's victims. Soon enough, both police and local media became aware that Jake was the perpetrator, and as soon as that became public knowledge, authorities knew that this event would fall against them. Angry questions soon followed.
Yeah.
These questions were pretty obvious. Why was Jake allowed to own a gun in the first place? Why did he not receive the mental health treatment he urgently required? And why was a man as disturbed as him allowed to have his gun returned? Jake was evidently a depressed and disturbed individual whose
All 100% fucking valid fucking questions.
nihilistic views on life left him with very little empathy to those around him. And being in the incel community, he surrounded himself in an echo chamber full of like-minded people. Moving forward, the two officers who handled Jake's firearms license were disciplined, this being specifically related to the confiscation and return of his shotgun. And Jake Davison's case marks a change to firearms licensing in the UK, where officers must now investigate the social media profiles of all applicants. The Home Office also ordering all police services in England and Wales to immediately review their practices and determine whether or not any existing licenses needed to be looked at again. So, at least firearm license security is being revisited. But when it comes to access for mental health treatment, nothing has changed. Which arguably is the most important factor to change here, as it was Jake's deranged mentality that ultimately took the lives of 5 innocent people.
I mean, I'm ever so happy that there's more ways to look into. Oh, is they going to potentially go crazy and kill someone? Other than, oh, let's get them help so they don't go crazy and kill someone. That's wonderful. That's beautiful.
Including his own mother, Maxine. Following Jake's despicable actions, an evening vigil was held for his victims at North Down Crescent Park the following night. Flags in the city were flown at half-mast, and Smeaton's tower was lit up that evening as a mark of respect. Friends, family, local neighbours, and even strangers all turned up to pay their respects to the 5 victims of Jake Davison: Lee Martin, Sophie Martin, Stephen Washington, Kate Shepherd, and Maxine Davison. Through my own experience, both direct and indirect, the NHS...
One man flipping out, going cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, took 5 lives. That's ridiculous that anyone let it get that far.
service is fantastic, but the support given towards mental health is, to be honest, not acceptable. It can take months for anyone to be seen. The more I cover cases involving incels, the more concerned I am over their community as a whole. If you focus your mind and obsess over negative aspects, you're just doubling down on that emotion and prospect. I hope the families of today's victims find strength, closure, and peace moving forward. That brings us to the end of today's case, folks. Thank you so much for watching another video today by Coffeehouse Crime.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it. Have a good one, bud. Alright, if y'all enjoyed today's video as much as I did, please leave a thumbs up. If you're a fan of the spooky, scary, strange, deranged things that make you feel bad, feel guilty for feeling bad, and then feel so much anger for feeling bad that it's unbelievable, think about subscribing and we'll go through those emotions together. As always, good to one another. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. I'm just saying, though, if he would have had better mental health care, support, help with in any way, shape, or form, maybe it had been like a thing where he wouldn't have got the gun. Like, I get, oh, let's watch their social media. Okay, anyone can have a shit day. Just because I have a shit day and I put something on social media doesn't mean I'm gonna go around killing every fucking body. You know what I mean? It just means I'm having a shit day. Should I have my gun taken because of that? No. But if I'm going to a mental health facility because, my health is not great, so, hey, let's get you there, get you fixed and straightened out. As a doctor, I don't think you should own a gun. I'm going to turn this in and then tell them no, and you're going to have it taken away. That's how it should go. Oh, there's something wrong with you. As a doctor, I'm going to say no, you can't have that. Oh, Bill 5000 on Facebook was like, oh, I fucking hate Mondays. Let's go take all the shit. You know something? Fuck it. Grr. Monday.